In this video with the AnKing, I'm going to show you all the new features and updates in Anki 2.1.55, and we will be recommending the Qt6 version for this version of Anki. One thing I'm really excited to talk about and want to share with everybody is AnkiHub. This is our new web app that has an Anki add-on. It allows for real-time collaboration. If you're using your flashcards, you can actually make flashcards in real time with other people. You can make large flashcard decks and collect suggestions from the community and improve the flashcards. It's really cool. It's been very successful already, and we're hoping to use this technology to connect into AI and other exciting things to make your flashcard and overall memory experience with Anki easier and better. So check that out. It's really cool. A lot of potential coming over the next year. Now, with coming to 2.1.55, there are inevitably add-on breaks with every Anki version, unfortunately. So one thing that we have done is we've created a Notion document. We've been tracking around 50 or 60 add-ons. Depends, and sometimes as things get automatically integrated into Anki, we've been noting that. We've found new add-ons that get published. We've been tracking the ones that we seem to like ourselves, but also that the community likes. And we've been paying for updates if they're publicly available, but there's not an active maintainer. We've also been updating our own add-ons. You can go to this Notion document here. There's a link in the description of this video. You can check out what is and isn't working. If you find that something isn't working, you can obviously report that to the person who is maintaining that add-on, but you're also welcome to look on here. You can leave comments. It's been a really good resource for our team, and hopefully it's useful for you as a public. One thing that I will say, here's all of our social medias, and I can put links in the description. About every Saturday on Instagram and Facebook on the story, I've been sharing a Saturday status update on what's going on with Anki, what versions are coming out soon, what add-ons are broken or not working, if there's new add-ons that are really cool, everything that's going on, what version we're recommending ultimately. So check that out if you want to get regular updates. We also have an email list where we're putting out things that are helpful as well. Now, Anki got a major makeover in this version. It is really cool. A huge thanks to Matt, who's actually been working with us on our team. He did an incredible job volunteering to do this and made Anki look so much better, which is something that all of us have been complaining about for years. It's still not perfect, but it looks really good. It's come a long way. There's been a number of screens that have some pretty significant improvements. I'll show you that. You'll probably notice it right away. And then one thing I was going to share with you, because it looks like about half of people prefer one button type and the other half prefer the other button type. If you're on Mac, there are two types of buttons you can see here. The one on the left is the one that is the default. The one on the right you can activate with this command here in the config. I can show you how to do that right now. But overall, I mean, seriously, this is a really cool update. First, I wanted to give you a quick look at this. This is the official changelog, so you can actually go look at like everything that was updated. There's a ton of bug fixes and stuff, so you can go ahead and look at this. I'll put this link in the description, but that's something that might be worth looking at. I just want to show you, you can already tell just looking at this, before I do anything, there's some pretty significant improvements to the way things look. Don't freak out, your options gears are still there. It just only shows which one's the current deck. And then you can see just overall improvements here to the buttons and everything. The editor looks quite a bit different, looks really good. You have these toggle buttons here that we'll talk about later, all sorts of really fancy things. The browser looks different as well. It has I have a color scheme set on here just because I'm using the recolor add-on, which is really fun, and I have the colorful tags add-on as well, so you can get both of those and mess around just because I like the colors. But you can tell overall the appearance here looks different, and I'll show you all the other things as we get further into this. But the one thing I did mention was how to change your buttons so that things look kind of, mine are the fun buttons, I think. So if you hit Command Shift and then semicolon, it will pull up the debug console, and then you can paste in that thing that I put in there, and then I'm going to do Command Enter. Of course, this is Control if you're on a Windows, and set that, and it will put it to the button style like I have. What I just showed, the one on the left is the default. This will be the other one. If you wanted to switch back, you would just change this to false. So anyway, that's all for how things look. Let's go into more features of Anki. The next set of huge advancements in this version are things to the editor. There's been quite a bit, so there may be some things that broke with add-ons and such. So if you find that things aren't working and you're in the editor, I would recommend looking at your add-ons and seeing if there's any conflicts or something like that and reporting it to the add-on author. One annoying thing if you're on Mac, the Command-Shift-C shortcut to create a close was super buggy and would sometimes do this, where it would create 2 closes. It was really obnoxious. I personally hated it. Thankfully, that was fixed in this version, so for all of you Mac users who were wondering why this was happening, it will no longer happen. The next thing is that there's an option to automatically show the HTML editor by default. So if you're using the HTML editor in the editor, or when you're making flashcards, you can enable it by default. You can also auto open and close that with the settings button, which is a new tool. There's a lot of settings in Anki, so I will show you that so you get a sense of it. The next thing is you can automatically make the fields expand or close, and this is something that was previously available with an add-on, and now it's been built into Anki. It's really cool, and you can disable the animation if you find that things are slow or laggy or whatever. Personally, I haven't had any issues with that, but it is in the preferences screen, and I won't show you that, but you can go find it if you want. The tags area can now be expanded and collapsed. This is huge, especially for those of you who've been following me through my medical school journey. The AnKing medical deck for step 1 and step 2 has a lot of tags, and it gets kind of crazy when you have 30 tags on one card and it kind of takes up the screen and you're unable to actually see what's on the card. Now you can expand and collapse that tags area, which is really nice. The next thing is you can control whether the images are automatically big or small in the editor. I kind of like it. You can keep the images small, that way you know what content's on there, and then if for whatever reason you wanted to look at an image or edit an image's size, you can double click it. It will expand the image. Now there's a setting that will actually let you do that, make them open and close, and there's an add-on that will let you kind of adjust this for all of your cards if you want to. That can be still helpful, so I'll show you that as well. Let's go to Anki and I show you all of these. If I go into the add dialog here, I can start to show you a lot of these cool features. So you can see this was updated quite a bit. You can toggle these open and closed. This button over here does the HTML editor, or you can use the shortcut Control-Shift-X or Command-Shift-X to open and close that. This button here was there before this version, but if you don't already know, that's the sticky. It's kind of like frozen fields if you were using Anki that long ago. This is an add-on that we created. It's the field autocomplete you can turn on, and then you can type things and it will actually find text that's already in your flashcards and make it easier to add to your flashcards. So that's what that is. Really cool. It is open to the public, so go ahead and download that. One of the things here is that you can adjust it so that the HTML editor here is the default. And the way you do that is you go into the fields. You'd have to do this per note type. And I could say I want the HTML editor to always be the default on the text field. So I can click it right here, or I can collapse it by default, which is kind of cool. So let's say I want to collapse the extra field by default, and we'll use the HTML on the text field. I can save that. Let's get out of this really quick. And then I will click the add button again and pop it open. You'll see that this is the HTML field by default here, and the extra is automatically closed. You can click that and then pull things open and it will change it. So I'll go ahead and reverse that back to what it was for normal, but that's how those two features work. The next thing is that the tag area can be expanded and closed. So I chose a tag or a card here that has quite a few tags. There's 11 tags. They're quite big. So I can actually click on that. It will open all of my tags. You can expand and close this as you want. So that way it doesn't interfere with the editor, which is really cool. If there's a long tag, you can hover over it and you'll see the whole thing. You can double click and you'll get the actual tag there. You can hold down the command or control button and select multiple tags if you wanted to copy multiple tags, or you can click the cursor out here and do Command or Control A to select all of the tags. So lots of improvements there with the tags. I think it's really nice how they work. And then the last thing is this settings feature here, which allows you to choose whether you want to shrink images or not. So let's go ahead and I'll go to my Chinese deck. You can see that here are a bunch of images, and I can double click on them and it will shrink them. And I can open them, and then that goes to full size, and then you can resize them as you want. And I don't want to, you can do that. You can expand it. You'll notice that if you are using the HTML editor and you have some HTML experience, that it does everything in the HTML here. So I can actually delete that out. You can see that this, let's do that. Doop. This part right here, the data editor shrink false, is what is actually controlling whether this is large or small. So you can see it's true now and it's large. And that's basically what this does. So I can set it to shrink images and it will always keep them shrunk, which is really handy, or I can not shrink the images and they will always be big by default. Really handy setting. The reason I say that the add-on that we made for previous versions of Anki may still be helpful is you can right click, especially if you have a note like this and you just wanted one to shrink really quick because you're working on it. You can Let's put them back out here. Where I found this to be useful, you can right click, go to notes, or if you're in the notes view, it'll pop up already. You go to notes and then you can shrink images. It will shrink all images on that note. And again, really all that's doing is just adding this HTML code here to the end. But then when you go out and back in, they just go back to normal depending on what your settings are. So I think it's a really cool a thing that's handy. Anyway, that's how all of that works. The next thing is the browser changes. There's not a huge thing, but there is one that I think is really convenient. Previously, you were able to make it so that the editor in the browser was on the bottom or on the right side. Now that is built into Anki. That was just an add-on before. It's really cool. There is an auto feature, which I found a little bit buggy when I was using and testing, but I expect that will probably be fixed quickly, so it might be that 2.1.56 has a fix for that. But otherwise, you can control the horizontal and vertical, which is really nice. You can also double click on the middle of it and it will make it so that it's half and half. It's just kind of a handy shortcut for those of you that are messing with things, and one of those quality of life things that you don't realize until you start using it. It can be quite handy. Other improvements to Anki, introduced X, which would be a number, is a search command that was introduced in recent Anki versions to tell you how many cards you did and started recently. So if you introduced 1, that would be how many cards were introduced today. Introduced 2 would be today and yesterday, and so on and so forth. That now ignores manual rescheduling. So previously, if you selected 200 cards and you manually rescheduled them and sent them out into the future, that would say that you had done 200 cards that day, but you really hadn't reviewed those 200 cards. So I think this is a great change. It'll be really handy. It does help with our calculating new cards add-on. It will make it so that things will calculate a lot better. So definitely an update there. Anki will now open to the previously active profile. This is really handy because it used to be that you would open Anki, then you had to click the profile, then open. And now it will make it so that if you have multiple profiles, it will just open to whatever the last one you were using was, which I think is really handy. The next thing is, for us Mac users, this is super nice. Definitely a quality of life thing. You can just do Command W when you're in the Add Cards dialog, and it will close that window instead of having to actually go up and click the close button. Really handy if you're like me and you like to stay on your keyboard and not have to use your mouse as much. This is not a huge thing, but the import code was updated. Supposedly it is better and improved in a lot of ways. If you were using the special fields add-on, this did break things because that add-on relied on the old export code. However, we paid somebody to update the special fields add-on, so it will force it to use the previous version, so hopefully that won't be an issue. Anyway, that's just kind of a simple update. And then this one is simple as well. If you're exporting and you're including scheduling, the filtered decks previously would just become a deck as opposed to being a filtered deck, but now it will actually stay as a filtered deck. There were also some other updates in this area, like if you were importing a CSV deck, it will now create decks if the decks didn't exist in Anki, and some updates in that regard that I won't show, but you can go and check it out on the official Anki changelog if you want to see all of those imports. Picking up right where we left off is the browser changes. So you can see I can go like this. One of the things you can do is double click this and it puts it right in the halfway point, which is really handy. You can also go to the view button and then you go to layout and you can set it to horizontal or vertical. If you set it to horizontal, it pops up over here, which is nice. You can also double click it there to make it go to the halfway point. Really handy, and now that it's built in, it works really well. Again, my layout when I was setting it to auto wasn't working great. When I resized the browser quite a bit, it should theoretically switch back to the bottom, and it doesn't. So I'm hoping that will be fixed quite soon. But anyway, I think it's really handy. I think this way, personally, is how I would prefer it. I think it's a lot easier, especially when you have a lot of fields. The only other thing I really want to show you is just that if you click the add field, I think this is so handy. You can do Command W on a Mac and close that. It's so handy. Anyway, it's just like I said, like a quality of life improvement, but makes a big deal. So, and I won't bother showing you the rest of the stuff because it's pretty straightforward. But that's really it for the browser and other changes. One of the biggest things and kind of like crazy step in the future direction is the scheduler changes to Anki. Everybody is always asking about wanting a new, better algorithm for Anki. Now, the truth is, the more I have researched and explored things, I actually think Anki has a pretty darn good algorithm, and I wouldn't recommend changing much from it. However, this is a really cool update. There is custom scheduling now allowed in Anki, and one of those things, it now allows for per card data, which supports this FSRS. Now that, very briefly, is a new algorithm that was developed by somebody who took a lot of data that was mostly language learning flashcards and combined that and created a new algorithm. They did some pretty significant research. There's a lot of data behind their efforts. The algorithm does end up being a little bit similar to the Anki algorithm, which is cool, but it does use your answers on the first cards in the learning phase to actually affect things down the road. As for whether this is better or worse than Anki, I truly can't say at the moment because I haven't had time to explore it. It's not working perfectly with Anki iOS or Anki Droid at the moment. It does require the V3 scheduler. It has an add-on so that if you're using mobile, then you can sync to desktop and use the add-on to reschedule things according to that algorithm. So it is possible to use that, but you would have to go back and forth between mobile and desktop frequently. I'm told that it should support Anki iOS pretty soon, and the Anki Droid team is aware of it. So there is a good possibility that will be supported universally in the near future. And at that point, I will make a video on this. It seems like there's been quite a few questions, and I truly haven't had enough time to explore this, but I wanted to address that in this video because I know it's a hot topic that a lot of people are interested in. I will actually show that and the GitHub and everything. I'll link that below. So if you want to go check it out on your own, you can go check it out. And I would love to hear your feedback on it. The next thing is the decks can individually specify how many new cards you want to allow. You can also say, like, I just want that setting to be in effect for today and then go back to its normal setting. I'll show you that. It's kind of a cool update. And then this one is not huge, but it used to be that the hard button could be something weird like 12 hours, depending on what your settings were. Now it just caps it to a day, kind of a quality of life thing, not a huge change. And then you shouldn't see any weird behavior when you're changing learning steps while cards are still in the learning phase, which is a good update. And then this is not huge, but you can change the maximum answer time so that it's below 30 seconds. The maximum answer time, if you don't remember, is basically the time when Anki will stop counting that you've been looking at that card for that long. So if the longest time you're ever looking at a card is 15 or 30 seconds or 20 seconds, and you want it to, like, after that, you probably got distracted and were checking your email or something, so you don't want it to count that time, you can now set the maximum answer time below 30 seconds. So not a huge thing, but I'll go show you all this in Anki now. All right, so the scheduler changes are massive. This is really cool. If you come over here, I've got this is a Reddit post. I think it works really well. They have a GitHub page that has a bunch of instructions as well, and an add-on for this FSRS algorithm. They explain it here. They explain their research paper, all that goes into that. I'll let you dig in and explore it. Like I said, if you'd be interested in a video, post a comment, let me know. I'm more than happy to explore this. I think it's really exciting that we're getting to this point, and we're hoping to actually use AnkiHub and get data and improve an algorithm as well on a massive scale. We can research things with lots of people using that. So check that out. I mean, there's a lot of things coming in the future with that. So this will be linked in the description. But beyond that, there's other things that I mentioned and I actually failed to mention. You'll notice when I open the settings, there are some pretty significant cosmetic changes to the settings, but also to the stats screen. If I open the stats screen, you can see it looks really cool now. If I close that, we'll go to the options screen. The cosmetics here are actually really cool as well. Significant update, and you can also click on the info buttons. It pops up and explains things, and then it links where in the manual you can go read more about it. I mean, this is really cool. They're like really trying to make it as easy as possible. But you can see right away, it has these new changes, which is really cool. So you can limit how many new cards you have per day. Ooh, that's kind of cool. You can click on that. It pops up too. I didn't know that until just now. You can do this. You can also say just today, and then it will go back to being what it is previously. And then you can come down here. You can set the maximum answer seconds to under 30 seconds if you want to do that. And then just kind of a sneak over here, the exam notifier add-on, we are getting that out public. It's either out already by the time I've released this video or will be shortly after. Really cool add-on that will give you a pop-up that tells you if your card that you are reviewing will be scheduled past your exam date on its next review. So kind of a little plug for that. Glutamate and I worked on that together. Kind of fun. So anyway, that's it for those scheduler changes. So those are all the updates for Anki 2.1.55. Again, we're recommending the Qt6 version from this point on, and we do have most of our add-ons updated. AnkiHub is updated. Our Anki Mastery course is going to be updated with the Palace Butler add-on very soon after releasing this video. We have a lot of cool beta add-ons on our membership that is available, and you can go beta test them. They are all updated for this version. It's a really cool update. I hope that these videos are useful for you. I would love to hear all of your comments on what you like, what you don't like on this version, what kinds of things you would hope for the future. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. We got lots of cool content like this coming in the future.